All right, welcome back. We're here for midterm problem 6. I'm your host, Scott Hamlin, and this problem, another one, took me a long time to do because first of all, what the problem is, we're getting a tuple or a list of integers, and we're going to return the maximum value from that list or tuple that we put in as an argument. I went through and I'm trying to, imagine what each thing could be, and working on that item or list or tuple, and it just got to be a mess until I finally, went back and read the problem, and I said, well, since I don't know what's going to come up, let's try to make this recursive. So it just comes back, and if you encounter a certain situation, you'll just go back to the function and do it again. And that's how I want to go ahead and solve this. So, let's start and make instead of thinking of all the different things that could happen, just try to make it for the simplest case, small problem, and then do it in little chunks, and then just keep taking the information and comparing it to the next bit of information you get. So our function is going to be an integer max of a variable r, and let's describe it. Our parameters are going to be r, which is a list or a tuple of integers. Okay, so you can get a list or a tuple. I think you also have to plan for lists of lists or a tuple of lists. So you need something that's pretty flexible. And if you think about it too grand, then I think that's where it messes you up. You just have to take it one bit at a time. Okay, what are we going to do? We're going to returns a max value. Okay, that's simple enough. It sounds simple, but in practice it was not very easy until I broke it down. Okay, so let's just initialize our max value variable is going to be 0. So that's our starting point, and we're going to go. Let's get a little space there. Make sure what's our size here. We're 150. That's good. Okay. All right. For every element in R, which is our variable, and I found this handy little command, and because I want to know what is it? Is it a tuple? Is it a list? Because depending on what it is, I have to treat it differently to iterate through it. So, because you can't iterate through, I don't think you can iterate through the tuples. You can iterate through the list. I think that's easy enough to do, but it's the tuples that kind of screw you up. So, if your instance is, and see, when I first tried this, I was using type and set to a variable and trying to compare. Well, there's an easier way to do it. So it's in an instance type element. And we are actually checking on the int. I'm checking to see this. If the element in R is of type integer, because you can have a list and it just be an integer, or it could be a tuple and all it is an integer. The first thing doesn't have to be a tuple. So if it's of an integer, we can just go straight off the back and we can do our comparison. So if that element is greater than max, we want max to equal the element. Okay, that's simple. All right, so that's breaking it down easy. That's if we find an integer. Well, what if we don't find an integer? So we'll go to another statement. What if it's an instance of your element is a tuple? Okay, well, what are we going to do with a tuple? Well, we can go, I used tmax equals integer. And what I did here is I called my function again. And I want to do it on this element because I can't iterate through a tuple. Some spaces here. I can't iterate through the tuple. So I got to break this thing down. I don't want to work with a tuple, so I'm going to make another variable. It's tmax, and I want it to equal whatever it finds in this tuple. So it's going to go through my function again, and hopefully, and if it comes to integer, it's just going to go through and assign a number to max. Eventually the definition will send it back to tmax. Okay, so tmax will have the maximum value for my function. Okay, and now after that runs, now I need to check, because I've run through that, if tmax is greater than max. So here's where that's where the recursion comes in. Then we're going to go max is equal, and we're going to assign tmax to max. So that's how we find a tuple. Well, okay, if it's not a tuple, and the element happens to be a list, okay, what are we going to do with that? Well, seems that list is really easy, and for each in element, so what would a list? There, we're looking at the element in the list. Well, we find out, well, we're looking at the element in R, and we find out it's a list. Okay, so we know the element is a list. So now and the list has items in it. So now we want to look for each item, each in that element, and we want to analyze that. And we want to go ahead and let's give it to element list. Okay, and then we want to make that we want to take that list. Yeah, actually, yeah, that's what we're taking that list and we're turning it into a tuple, because I know what happens when I do with a tuple. I go tmax equals integer max element list, and then so that's basically recursive, and that's going to come back. I know if I have a tuple that I can deal with it, and I can get tmax and get a value, and tmax greater than max, we're going to assign that to max. And all the time I had been working, and when I tried this, I said, "Oh man, this looks too easy." When I said, "Let's try the recursive," and I ran it through, and it came back perfectly. I said, "It's hard for me to visualize how the recursive thing keeps adding them in, but it keeps track of it, and you have to put it in." I had to put it in the visualizer, Python visualizer, and you can see it just keeps track of each one, and it runs through. So you've gone through, and it'll go through every element like that. And then what I want to do now is I want to return max. An hour spent, and then I was able to boil it down to this, and that was a great feeling. Now, let's do shift in. Okay, so now we've got our definition, right? That's what I'll end up turning in. But we need to do some testing on this too. So we made, in fact, you know what, I'm going to, instead of typing all that there, I'm just going to copy and paste my testing. Okay, you don't need to watch me type all that in. Okay, so what I wanted to do a tuple of integers and see what would happen with that. A tuple of tuples. And that's what these things are. I want a list of integers. I want to try a tuple combo. So what x3 is basically a combo, and then there's a tuple, there's a list, and there's integers. Then I wanted a tuple that was nested combo. So I got a tuple, and I really didn't think this would work, but I've got a list with lists, and I've got a tuple of lists and integers, and then I got an integer out there. So let me run all these and see what happens. And okay, so the first one, 66 is the max, I got 66. This one, 90 is the max, I got it. Next one, 42 is the max, I got it. Next one, 125, that is it. And then this one, 222, and it came up, it works. What a great feeling that is. I think you can probably, maybe you can do something with this, if this is an instance of a tuple or a list and combine it. I didn't try that. I was just happy that it worked there, and that was it. Okay, there's my answer. I'm going to turn it in. I won't have the testing because it didn't ask for it. All right. Thank you very much for your time.